This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.
Welcome to What's News Dunedin, brought to you by Hazur Kebab, the radio show that spawned from the 19,000 plus strong local Otipoti Dunedin What's News Dunedin Facebook group. The group that's been putting the social back into social media since 2020 with respectful adult debate and a sense of humour. I'm your host, Richard Knights. On today's show, we talk to our wonderful guest, Tess Trotter, advocate for community as an answer to personal and shared challenges, who will be telling us a bit more about themselves and what they do, as well as helping us look back at the posts that have generated the most interactions over the past 7 days on the What's News Dunedin Facebook group. Those three posts this week are Eric's for sale, amid concerns that this might be a bad thing for the Dunedin music scene. The possibility of adding stalls serving alcohol to the George Street Market event that's happening now once a year. And East Otago doctor's practice being without an actual registered GP. Welcome to the show, Tess.
Thank you so much. Kia ora.
And I apologise already for calling you Jess when you got here. So everyone knows that my brain works faster than my mouth does, which is and then things just happen, or the other way around possibly. Now, before we get into the news stuff, what we're going to do is we have a Pun Day Monday in the group where I challenge our punsters to throw out their best dad joke or their best pun on the page, and whoever gets the most reacts, most laugh reacts, basically, it's as unscientific as that, I bring it on the show. So
nice.
So then we get to see whether it comes off the page into the spoken world, and whether it's as funny, off the paper. So this is friend of the show, Steve Walker. Mm-hmm. What do you say to a llama that loves picnics?
I remember this and it's dropped out of my head. No, it's gone. I'm sorry.
Alpaca lunch.
Alpaca lunch. I knew it was
alpaca lunch, which I think is an excellent one. To be completely fair, Steve will be pleased that he's got he's won the plaudits for this week. And again, before we do the news side of stuff, I'm going to go through our three pop questions. Right, so these are the three questions I ask all my guests, and basically, these are so deep and probing into your inner psyche that they actually basically tell our listeners everything they need to know about. Are you
going to ask me which colour crayon I would be in the crayon box?
That might. I mean, maybe. You never know. We never know. But this is ultimately going to get right under the skin of Tess. So, first question, right? You got cream teas. So you have a scone, you have jam, you have cream. What goes on first, the jam or the cream?
Oh, jam. Actually, no, I changed my answer. The butter.
Butter,
then jam, then cream.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wonder what you're going with then for a second, because when people say, I want to change my answer, I start to worry, because jam is definitely the right answer. Mm-hmm. And people who know me know that anyone that gets that question wrong, that's the only question you get wrong on my show, genuinely. And yeah, but it is. That's absolutely the best way to do it. The only way to do it.
The only. Science
supports us, Tess. That's what I would say, because you can't spread jam on cream. Simple as that.
No, it's madness.
Absolutely. Anyone who does, you got to question the sociopathy of someone that maybe does it the other way around.
Yeah.
Like Jared Hodgson, I'm looking at you.
Oh dear.
Love him. He's a great person, Jared is. But he's just
wrong.
He's just no good with scones. What can I say? Second question, and this one you cannot get wrong. Who is your favourite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle?
I thought you were going to say my favourite teenager, and that's a really easy answer. Favourite? Look, I'm just going to have to go with the one I remember the most, which is Michelangelo.
There's no wrong answers with the turtles. No wrong answers. They're all Renaissance painters: Raphael, Leonardo, Michelangelo, Donatello.
Yes.
Master Splinter, the giant rat. Yeah, that's horrible for me with musophobia. But yeah, there are no. You can't get the turtles wrong, right? So now the third question is a thinker. Okay, so would you rather be kidnapped by pirates or kidnapped by aliens?
Pirates all the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it the probing thing you're worried about?
No. One is I believe more in pirates than I do in aliens. And I've always kind of fancied myself a bit of a pirate, You're
being kidnapped by them. Are you hoping that they're going to bring you on board and make you
I'll turn into the siren,
Part of the gang.
Yeah, I'll become part of the gang. I grew up really, really interested in Pippi Longstockings, and she was sort of pirate-esque in a way,
Right.
And so for me, looting, gold, travelling the high seas,
Yeah.
bit of skullduggery. It kind of appeals.
Scurvy, seasickness. I'm
with me on the boat, they'll be fine.
Well, there you go. Absolutely. see, me personally, probing aside, I think I'd rather be kidnapped by aliens.
Don't you feel like you'd know less about what they might do to you, though?
Well, that's why I'm worried about the probing. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, okay.
I've seen, I've seen the National Enquirer, and those kind of, things in the States. But like, I know pirates exist.
Yes.
Right. So like, if I'm now kidnapped by aliens, I now know that something else exists.
This is true.
It's like I'd like to go to a haunted house and see a ghost because I don't believe they exist. But if I then found out that they did, like, I think that would be like one of those, like, that's bloody awesome.
It's quite life-changing, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so again, the thing, I'm a firm believer that the aliens are out there, right? Because just simply the law of averages says that in all the planets, in all the solar systems, in all the cosmos, we can't be the only one that's got semi-intelligent life, right?
No.
There's got to be others, right? There's got to be others because it would be impossible for that not to happen. So I'd like to be kidnapped by aliens with, obviously, sans probing, none of that, like consent's consent and all that kind of stuff. But that would just be fantastic. Like I'm now in space.
I also, maybe is it that my hope would be that aliens may not kidnap, but they might, they may be a more higher intelligence, and they might come and rescue you.
They might be recruiting.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like, obviously you wanted to get the pirate job, but they would kidnap you. Maybe you just sort of wind your way into a job bit later on.
Pretty much, yeah.
Whereas with the aliens, they might just come and say, "Rich, look, we've listened to your show.
You bring the social.
We think we've seen your social media. We've listened to your show. We think you're a reasonable human being. Like, could we employ you?"
Yes, yeah.
And then I'm not technically kidnapped by aliens anymore. I'm just kind of,
absorbed.
Yeah, absolutely. I just, because I can imagine most people look at me like an alien anyway. So it was like, fair enough. So no, yeah, absolutely. So that's the complicated part of the show, right? After this, it gets easier.
It was very complicated.
I know,
especially
absolutely.
for a Friday.
Well, exactly, and it's just one of those, especially on Daffodil Day as well.
Yes,
I love you in yellow.
I did my best.
That's fantastic. I've got my pins over there for supporting the Cancer Society and stuff.
They're reusable. See, this is why I wore the yellow dress, was to avoid buying the plastic flower.
Absolutely. I've been out there this morning on the streets, selling some. There's some wonderful. Spirit around that today. So I just want to make a point of it because obviously a lot of people have been affected by cancer in their journey, but it's like there's some lovely sentiment that goes on on Daffodil Day and people giving in generosity and stuff like that.
Absolutely. And I think just also that I saw someone walking through the Octagon just before with a big bunch of daffodils, and
awesome,
it just brings joy. It reminds us that we've got spring. It reminds us that there's something, a shared thing that we all experience, but that we can come together on it. Like there's lots of things to love.
It's not often you walk through a city and then there's lots of people carrying flowers. It's not like the one day of the year. Like, I'm sure people are taking flowers time to their partners and their families and stuff all year long. But it's one of those days like everyone's walking around with a bunch of bright yellow like in your face. It just
makes you smile, doesn't it?
It's hard. It's hard not to. To be completely fair.
I think flowers are a great one for creating random eye contact. Like you can't help but sort of make eye contact with someone when they're carrying flowers, and you have that little shared smile and the knowing of what it means and all of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've seen that. I've seen people carrying. I'm giving them eye contact, and I'm kind of going, I appreciate you for your donate. And that's and they're kind of picking it up too. And it's just a day.
It's just a wee symbol.
Yeah. When you consider the dark side of cancer, this is the very much the brighter side of cancer. Your nails are yellow too. I'm fantastic.
That wasn't quite intentional, but
there
you
go.
With it.
It's like this is obviously radio TV at this moment, and so I'm describing the stuff that's happening in the studio, which is fantastic. So we're going to go out and talk about. I want to talk about the 3 topics of the week, right, which is just the random topics that people have been talking about over the last 7 days on the page. And the first one that was generating quite a bit of interest earlier on in the week was the announcement that Eric's, which is the music venue down by sort of near Animates, down on that end of sort of. Is it Cumberland Street at that point? It changes names so often, but on the one way heading,
it's close to the Oval.
Yes, but it's me. It's Big Safe Furniture Animates. Is that kind of how I kind of pinpoint it in my map in my brain. that it's a fantastic venue, and was owned and set up, I think, by the same guys that set up Umbrellos, and yeah, so and now it's up for sale. 350,000, which I'm assuming is just the business, because actually I'm assuming the building is leased, because it tends to be the way with those kind of large places. The concern being is that if someone who's not music orientated, or who's not live music orientated, it might take that and turn it into something very different to what it is now. And the concern is that we are losing. Obviously, Eric's is a fairly new addition to the live music scene, but we've been historically losing places where like live bands go and play. And
when Eric's first sort of came on the scene, it was seen as one of the sort of antidotes to that challenge, right? And so to see it up for sale in a number, smallish number of years, understandably makes people in that whole space, shake a little bit, because if this was the new thing, after so many losses, then what will it mean? And as individuals, as residents, we don't have much control over that, do we?
We don't. Absolutely,
it's a business decision.
Absolutely, and you can't blame the businesses for making those business decisions, because their circumstances change. Their whatever their life dynamic is doing is different from one day to the next, right? And so you wish them well and you thank them for what they've created. And I guess there's just the hope, right, that the next person through the door, the next person to have the keys, is going to keep it in the manner, or at least very similar manner to. So the
opportunity is still there. I mean, I think one of the positive things, I was just chatting with this about this with some people the other day, is I think I don't know the reasons, but certainly the second venue that is also a music venue set up by the same people, I think, is starting to have a bit of strength now. So I wonder if it's partly a decision based on that they can't run two humming music venues at the same time, and so they're sort of putting their energy into the newer one.
What's the new one? Is it Drop Kicks, because that's much more towards the student quarter.
Yes, it is.
And it's been very much put in place as a platform to encourage performance. Which I again, I'm kudos to them for that kind of sort of spirit around doing that, because actually that's a real, we need that. We absolutely need that grassroots kind of encouragement to go out and be musically loud.
Yes, yeah.
And a place to do that and to cut your teeth.
I think one of the things from my perspective though is that yes it is around music and is around playing it loud, but I come from a community context, so in a way I don't really care what it is that people are coming together about. It's the fact that they're coming together. And certainly in my old lady experience of not going out, not leaving my house after dark much at all, the couple of things I have been to in the last few years have been at Eric's, and I think that kind of speaks to the diversity and what's being on offer there as well. There have been some cool musicians that have toured as well that I have thought about going to but haven't. But I think, having a space like that is quite multifunctional, that it's kind of diverse. You can have a music. I went to something recently that had comedy, music and poetry readings all in the same event. And the venue was brilliant for all of that, and it could be emceed and it's not so big that you're lost in the crowd, but it's not so small that it's just everyone It's got that really nice in-between kind of feel. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I'm completely disassociated from Dunedin music scene, because I've only been here 15 years and I wasn't attached.
It's not in your blood.
No, it's absolutely not. I mean, I love the bands that I love, and I've been to a lot of the big concerts at the stadium, but I can't say that I've been to a small live gig. But I hadn't been to a small live gig back in the UK either. It just wasn't. That wasn't where That's not where I find my music, right? And everyone's different with regards to that. But one of the things I have heard said about the Dunedin music scene is that there's people like me who love music but don't go and put bums on seats, which makes it very difficult for these venues to actually, so I'm kind of pointing the finger back at myself here in the sense that,
as am I.
If I want live music to continue, then I probably need to go and, rather than just talking about supporting live music, I actually probably need to go and put money into a ticket and actually go and see. But I'm completely disconnected from the scene, so I don't know. I've got no idea what I'd like to see in the first place, if that makes sense.
Having said that, so as a parent of a teenager, part of my sort of how do I support that is actually encouraging my young person to get involved.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
one of the other events that I've been to in recent years at Eric's was an awesome concert put on by the Dunedin Youth Council, and it was all ages. And I think that has been one of the great strengths of the Dunedin music scene.
Yeah.
You know, I did put my bum on seats when I was a teenager,
Yeah.
but we had lots more opportunities to see local acts in places where young people were welcomed. And that's one of the real strengths I've seen with Eric's as well. Not always, you know, it's a lot of work for a venue to put all of the alcohol behind closed doors, as it were, to make something all ages, but they've made that effort. And I don't think we can underestimate what that takes in terms of what it cuts into your bottom line, because you're not getting alcohol sales, the setup, and the perceived risk as well. Yeah, because I guess one of the reasons Dunedin music scene was so sort of vibrant in the 80s and 90s is we didn't have as much of a risk lens over things. So certainly when I went to some of those gigs when I was a young person, I remember the old Ruby and the Dust Cafe had an amazing venue down the back. You sort of went down this wee alleyway and it came out to this big dark room for grungy music to play. There were certainly people drinking quite a lot, but there wasn't as deep a concern about whether it was a restricted area or whatnot. So I think in 2025, we're in 2025, aren't we? I was about to say 26 for a second.
Don't push us into the future, Tess. No.
Having venues that are open to, you know, having that sort of more dynamic setup to allow and encourage young people, because I think that's where I see the future of it being, you know. You've got heaps of young people interested in music. They're learning online. They're looking at YouTube videos. They're creating bands. During high school years, there's quite a lot of support. You've got the Rock Fest, that kind of thing. But then where do they go? Where do those 17, 18-year-olds go that don't have familiarity with the local bar scene? Maybe their music isn't a big money earner, but they probably can pull a crowd, hey?
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you?
It's just having the space for them to be able to do that, and venue owners that are open-minded to it as well.
Especially with social media now, they're able to sort of publicise yourself and your event very quite quickly and easily to people for a very little, you know, very little cost of nothing.
And having a known venue that people feel familiar with.
Absolutely.
You know, even for folks like me and you that maybe don't go out so much, I'm more inclined to go back to somewhere that I have some familiarity with. I know I can park down near Eric's. I know that it's kind of warm. I know the seats are kind of comfortable. All the old lady elements that I check off in my brain is an easier entry point for me if it's somewhere I've already been before.
Fantastic. Well, fingers crossed that someone takes it on, you know, in the same manner as it's, you know.
And hopefully they don't feel too intimidated by all the brilliant things that
No, exactly.
said.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, hopefully, that's it. So, second topic of the week was the announcement that they were bringing the council as a council meeting. So I don't know how this has gone. To be fair, haven't paid any attention to the output but the input was that they were going to consider having alcohol stalls of some description for the George Street Market. We've had the first one this year, which replaced the Thieves Alley Market that was kind of in that Octagon, Bath Street kind of area, with a very, very successful, I believe, because I heard
it was amazing.
It was fantastic. I genuinely and there was a dumpling truck that came up from Invercargill that changed my life.
Ooh.
Because the dumplings were just amazing.
I'm going to need to hear more about the dumplings.
I'm governed by my stomach. I think it's called like Louis or something. It's called, but it's a they did, and then the chili sauce that it comes with. Oh. It was I was eating everything, but I went for some to say something. I thought I've got to try them. Then we went back for 2 lots more, and that was already after I'd had lunch. Because I took some home because I was like, they won't be here. They're going in Invercargill anyway. They're fantastic. More of that, please, for the George Street Market. But they were talking about bringing alcohol and alcohol stores. Now, I don't quite understand the context of that, bearing in mind that we do have, along that part, we do have places like the Bog and those kind of places, and into the Octagon, we obviously have a whole load of alcohol-selling establishments. What they were meaning, I'm assuming there'll be stores for craft beers potentially and things like that. I don't know. But the thought in my mind was like, do we need to add alcohol to 20,000 people walking through in a general market sense? Because we've got a bad enough sort of reputation or relationship with alcohol in this country. And I come from a place where the relationship with alcohol is just as bad, right? Yeah. So I'm not looking down my nose at anyone that drinks. I was a heavy drinker in my earlier years, right? So and now I don't drink anything. But that's that's not a lifestyle choice. That's just I've kind of got beyond having hangovers. I just don't.
I feel you.
I don't like Saturday morning. I used to stop liking Saturday mornings, right? Because my head was pounding, and now a hangover for me takes me 4 days to get through rather than 4 hours, and I just can't be doing with it. It's not that I don't like a beer.
You don't have the time.
No, exactly. I don't have enough time in my day to deal with the headache. But I'm genuinely wondering whether we need to add that to something that was already in my mind a very It wasn't like we need to encourage people to be there.
Got you.
It's not like we need to kind of go, come on, there's beer. It's not like we need to kind of go, it wasn't much fun, so, have a drink and, and let your hair down. And then I hate that attitude anyway, because I'm as stupid and silly when I'm sober as I am when I'm drunk, In fact, some people can't tell the difference. But do you know what I mean? It's like one of those things.
I do,
and I don't know the answer to it, but it just feels like it feels like it's unnecessary to me. But then I've been through my drinking years and all that kind of stuff too, so that's kind of so.
I guess, again, I don't go out much. I don't drink much either, and I didn't go to the George Street Market, so I'm totally speaking off my mind here. But when I saw that, I just thought, oh, why? And so I think sometimes it's really important to ask why and from who. Yeah, because I think sometimes, especially in a smaller city like Dunedin, it's very easy for one or two people with a loudish voice or a photograph in the paper to start dictating decision-making and policies that aren't really speaking to the masses. For me, the old Thieves Alley market I always found really busy. It was quite squash. It was brilliant to be using that little part of town around Bath Street, but it always felt quite restricted.
Yeah.
I loved the idea of opening out George Street. George Street, with the redesign, is prime for this kind of thing. But I'm always going to be an advocate for young people, and I'm not an advocate of drinking around young people. I appreciate it happens a little, but to me it's sort of trying to layer the craft food beer festival on top of what's already really successful market.
Yeah.
And also I think one of the brilliant things about the market is that opportunity for all sorts of people to be able to sell their wares. Now, the cost of living's huge, disposable income's lower. Are people going to choose to spend their money on a drink rather than buying something that's been locally made? And that, I think, would be a real shame from my perspective. I totally get, you have food vendors, maybe some drink vendors. I just think that potentially it's been blown up as quite a big factor when maybe it's just a small idea with the event. All in all, my perspective on it would be leave that till later in the evening, Maybe it's a great opportunity to have a big day of celebration across our city, have a market during the day, have lots of cool activities, get people playing on the seesaws and send them up towards the Octagon where we already have some great establishments and they use that space in and around the Octagon. You could make it a bit more of a lively affair of an evening, but do we need all the things all at once? Because actually we've got great entertainment on our main street anyway, every day. Adding some local makers into that, adding some family stuff, adding some music.
Some great entertainment as well last time through.
Yeah.
I love the way they used the bar and dance crossings for like entertainment spaces.
Yes,
so
very cool.
As you're walking down, you just get to each of those junctions, and they'd be performing. There's like a performance area in those crossroads.
Very cool.
Which was awesome. It was an event I thoroughly enjoyed it much more than the Thieves Alley, because of that same again, that kind of like I don't mind crowds, but I don't like kind of fighting through everywhere, especially when I'm walking with your family. If you have to go single file, it doesn't feel like
it really takes away from the enjoyment.
The family part of it, you want to be able to walk sort of like three adrift, three abreast kind of, rather than kind of sort of.
And that's what I envision it being like with it being on George Street now. I don't actually know because I wasn't there.
It was still very busy.
I imagine it'd be very busy, but a little bit more opportunity to kind of maybe stay in one space for a little while. Because I always felt with the Thieves Alley, you were almost kind of doing that single file, just you're moving the whole time.
It was like the tide was taking you through. If you stopped, you were kind of, that was it. Everyone was backed up behind you. It was.
And I guess that's probably why it's brilliant to have those entertainment areas as well. It's sort of reminiscent to me of the South Dunedin Street Festival, how they sort of have a few spots of entertainers. So there's a bit of a focus for a period of time, and then you can kind of ebb in and out to the stalls and to the entertainment and.
Yeah, absolutely. Topic 3. East Otago doctors practice being without actual registered GPs.
Now, I did see this post and read all of the comments as well.
So we had a post in the page a couple of days back, and ODT has clearly picked it up.
Oh, have they? Right.
And they run with a story today. So we were talking about, this is so,
this happens all the time, doesn't it?
They do grab quite a bit of information from my page, and they've never mentioned my name once. Sadly, it's like my ego is bruised.
Yeah, I can see it's black and blue. Right?
I know from the lack of acknowledgement that they've actually taken stuff from my page. But they were talking about it. It was one of our, I think it was John Muskett had put the post up, and it'd taken him ages, taken him 5 weeks to get an appointment. Turned out he was just getting an appointment with a nurse practitioner, who by all accounts, according to the comments, is actually bloody fantastic and great, but not a registered GP. And it turns out the practice in his target that he's talking about is without one, even though they've got 2 registered on their website, but apparently without and it doesn't look like they're going to get one anytime soon. And that and whilst it's synonymous with the rest of our underfunded health system right now, and people going like, where are our GPs? Why does it cost me $60 to go to a GP?
Yeah.
Like genuinely, why does it cost you? I'm sick. I've got friends. I've spoken to them. They've been sick for 3 weeks. I'm like, go to a doctor, and they're like, I can't afford it. I can't afford to. That should in my mind, that should never be. It's either doctor or I eat. Yeah. Well, hang on a second. Those 2 things should not be one or the other. That you should be able to do both. What are we doing here?
Well, I have to say from personal experience, I've been fortunate in the last few years to not really think about it. Make the booking with your doctor. It's probably the time for me more than anything to but if you're sick, then you're sick and you go to the doctor. But more recently, I've started working just part-time, and now it is a huge factor, and I have to really weigh things up, and it's outrageous. Even if we just look at it from an economic perspective, the lost time and someone not being at work, not being in a caring position, not contributing in the community, not feeling good about themselves and the impact on their mental health for that small cost of seeing a GP, it just doesn't make any economic sense to me. And my personal opinion is the government needs to step right up and start seeing healthcare as a genuine universal right, and that means affordability. And it also means access, because what I'm noticing in the news and all of that stuff is it is in these more rural areas. I happen to know a few people that live in the East Otago area, and I know all of them either travel to Oamaru or to Dunedin to see their GP because of long-standing shortages. So not necessarily just this one incident, but that it's actually been getting worse and worse for a long time to be able to access. And we seem to be ignorant of the fact that we have a lot of rural areas in our country. Sure, they don't have the highest population, but they are a lot of the people that are keeping the food in our supermarkets.
Absolutely.
And
those people that have to travel for doctors because there's no doctors there. I mean, that's an increased cost on top of their $60 that they're paying when they
let's not forget, didn't they just can some buses through that area as well? So the opportunity to
and they put the fees up, and the fares are about to go up for those services, because again the government's come down and said they've got to make their capital contribution increase, but they don't have any more people. So again, Otago Regional Council and Elliot Weir was on the show a while back talking about this. They've fought as hard as they can to kind of balance that out, but still had no choice but to put fees up and then start charging for under 12s again or under 13s again, I think.
Yes, that's right.
So again, it's even getting on the buses now become more expensive. Then you've got to travel for a doctor.
I saw actually the other day. I can't remember the precise details, but there's been a sort of tacit sort of agreement with the bus that returns out to Waikouaiti from Dunedin. It's at 3:30, so it's outside of the time that the Super Gold card users can get free public transport, but it's also the only return bus.
Right.
So up until now, it's sort of been agreed that they can jump on that bus without charge. That's been removed. The councils, like the ORC, are having to look really, really closely. But that means if you're an older person and you need to travel into the city to see your GP, for example, there's no way to do it within the the mechanism of the Super Gold Card, even though you're travelling outside of peak times, etc., there is no bus to get back home.
It's crazy,
in those hours. So it's sort of coming at people economically from every angle.
Exactly.
Hey?
And it's not new that we're rural. It's not new that we've got a fairly sort of dispersed and small population in this part of the world. It's one of the reasons I moved here, is because I love the fact that there's less people banging around. But it's not new. This is not suddenly what we woke up one morning and went, oh, we haven't got a lot
what's new is actually that our main centres are growing and growing and growing.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just one of those, again, it's just one of those things that we're kind of going, what are we trying to achieve by doing these things? What are we trying to, where is the benefit? Because the one thing that you've got is that if you've got a healthy workforce, you've got people going to work, you've got people to feel better about themselves, you've got the foundations of a better society, full stop. If people know that as soon as I feel sick, I'm going to get sorted. If people are like sort of spending 3 weeks feeling like death because they can't afford the doctors, well, they're spreading those germs around to everyone else. It might be another reason why we've had such a spike in
so true
cold and flu stuff right now, because people aren't being able to afford to go and get fixed. But also it's just that that whole feeling, that whole mental health, everything. It just doesn't. None of it works for me. And I come from a part of the world again where doctors are free,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
And you pay some extra tax, you pay national insurance, and you pay for your health service.
But it's holistically, rather
absolutely.
than that user pays.
Yeah, totally.
The ticket.
And then you got free dental care as well. It's another thing that I could talk for an hour about, the free dental care. We need our free dental care, because if you've got good teeth, good health, right? You don't then use the emergency services. You don't then use the, you need the beds and the wards and, in the hospitals. You actually, preventative is far more beneficial than fixing it once.
And it's
once
beneficial across the board, right? It's beneficial to an individual. It's beneficial economically. It's beneficial for predicting what services and infrastructure costs you might need. And I actually remember on one of the posts that I saw discussing this topic, one of the people mentioned that they were able to get in to see their health, what is it, sorry, not a health practitioner, the nurse practitioner, and they had a cancer discovered. So just noting, we're talking here about it being Daffodil Day today.
Yeah.
On an individual level, the power of seeing your primary health care person, sometimes weeks do matter.
Yeah. And can be extremely life-changing.
Yeah.
I want to talk about you, but before we do, I want to get a quick word from our wonderful sponsor.
Have you checked out Hazur Kebab yet? It's your go-to for a delicious lunch, a tasty dinner, or anything in between. Order online to save time and pick up some delicious, authentic Turkish cuisine in just minutes. HazurKebabCafe.co.nz. Dine in or take away at 906 George Street.
Have you been at Hazur Kebab?
Oh, I love Hazur Kebab.
Oh, I could
So
eat there. I
good.
could eat there every day.
Do you know, I'm so fortunate. Every time I go in, which isn't that often because I have had a guilty Uber Eats addiction that I've given up. I've deleted the app. But every time I go in, the man is so friendly. He always remembers my name. He's so friendly and wonderful. He often gives me some Turkish delight or an extra bit of this or that.
That's just
and
fantastic.
says, I saw you here, I saw you there. I see them jump in when there's crisis in our city.
They're just good.
Huge fan.
Mustafa's a great human being. I'm proud to call him a friend. Like he's not just someone who sponsors my show. He's a friend.
Yeah.
He's amazing. He feels like another son. Like because he's a young lad. And he's only 26, 27.
Is he really? Gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Was shot at the Christchurch massacre thing.
Yes, yeah.
So I've had him on the show. The stories. He had me in tears. But he's just a great human being, and like genuinely consider him part of my family now. It's like it's
cool.
like, and I don't. When I go in there, he just makes something for me. I don't even order anymore.
Yeah.
He literally just says, "You want me to make something?" I'm like, surprise me.
Yeah.
And he does every time. He's like something different. It's just I get to taste everything. It's just amazing.
Oh, and the food's so good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Cooked with love as well. you know, so.
And you can really feel that, eh?
I know,
Yeah.
and it's just the feeling there.
It's hard for me to fathom that it hasn't always been there. It feels like one of those places that's always just been part of our little beautiful city.
But yeah, not that old, to be fair. But anyway, now I want to talk about Tess Trotter. So I've got you down here as an advocate for community as an answer to to personal and shared challenges. So I want you to give me the 5 minutes cliff notes about why you gave that to me as your
Sure.
as your introduction. Because that came straight. Those are your words exactly.
Damn.
I know,
that
right?
was months ago.
I know, but I'm now holding you to the words you used, and to give it the listeners a little brief synopsis about you and what you do and how you do it, and then we'll open the conversation up a bit broader.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think the reason those words came to me is actually from something that was going on for me quite a few years ago, and that's that my lovely mum, who I love very much, was really head up about climate change. Yeah, understandably, it's very real. There's a lot of frustration with people that don't want to acknowledge it. And I guess you could say over the sort of 10, 15 years, it's become an ever-present daily situation in our minds. And my mum's just similar to me. She's a really good ranter at times. And she'd often come to me, and it's when my daughter was really young, and she'd say, I've just read this article and I found out about these ice caps and this is going to happen and it's imminent and And I always had this sense like somehow she was expecting me to have an answer and I didn't. Yeah. And it's one of those sort of existential, too big to know what to do. Is my impact having any real change making on the state of the world? And what I started to realise after a while, that because my mum was calling by on a daily basis with these rants, I was starting to feel that real higher sense of anxiety that we all kind of get, partly in knowing what to say to my mum, knowing what to say to my daughter, what am I doing, how does this fit in with making money and growing a family and all the other aspirations that I have. And what I realised, for me anyway, was valuing the impact that I could have at home in my own household. So the way that I bring up my children, the things that I grow in my garden, how I manage my waste. And then when I'm feeling okay about that, how can I spread that out a little bit more? I was fortunate enough at the time to live next to my in-laws and to know a lot of my neighbours. I'm from the North East Valley community area, which is a really tight-knit community. Mm-hmm. And so I can have a bit of impact there. And then, okay, what can I do at a community kind of level? And for me, it helped really break down that giant problem into what can I actually do and what are the holistic co-benefits of all of that. So that's sort of my explanation of why I say it's sort of the answer at a personal and wider level, because when we come together over a shared challenge, we can have a laugh, we can do something together, we can share ideas, we can uplift those that need support, and we can take knowledge and advice and resources from those that have more than us. And it's a great equaliser in a way, being in a community setting. And a lot of people say, oh, but I'm not a people person, or I'm not a churchgoer. There's lots of different ways in which I guess we can see community. Or, some people see it as just a word that the council uses to talk about them and us, there's so many different iterations. So that's kind of my version of it. And then I guess I've been really fortunate. People think of me as a bit of a planner and organiser. I'm really not that organised. Don't tell anyone.
No, the secret's between
you, me, and the rest of Ōtepoti.
You, me, and the two people that listen to the show.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So,
But I've been sort of lucky at times to sort of come across different spaces that might need a bit of energising, and so it's sort of become my career by accident in a way. My interest when I was younger was in media and communications, and I guess for similar sort of reasons. So one of the big sort of pivotal changing points for me was about 10 years ago now. We had this beautiful little organic, almost free-range dairy farm out in Reynoldstown in Port Chalmers. And in 2016, so this was a herd of about 20 cows, Jersey cows, which make the best milk. It's got a really...
The brown ones?
The light brown.
Light brown ones.
Yeah,
not the Friesians.
No, not the Friesians,
I know so much about cattle.
Okay.
No, I don't really.
Oh.
I know there's two types of cow, the black and white ones and the brown ones.
And the brown ones,
Because Jersey cows are from my part of the world.
Yes,
like
yeah,
Jersey.
yeah.
So, the light brown ones, but you're right, they do make... I'm sure they use them for the clotted cream for the scones.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm a fan of food, much like you. I do think with that organ more than anything else.
There's nothing wrong with that, Tess.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. Oh, delicious catering this morning, by the way, from Precinct. Thank you very much. All waste-free. Loved it.
Yeah, they were pretty good there, right?
So good. Oh,
I should probably do a food show. Like,
you probably should, because I've
just do
actually, the one note I've written down is chili and garlics, because I have a wee story about sauces.
Awesome.
So anyway, holy cow, beautiful little family-run business, Jersey cows, milk and honey sort of stuff, beautiful, out in a beautiful surrounding. And one of their cows got TB, and the farm had to shut down. And it was one of those moments where, as you're probably very familiar with, you see this big flare-up over social media. There's a whole lot of people with strong feelings. They want to help, they want to support, and someone kind of just needs to get in and make a little bit of a plan. And so on this particular occasion with this thing, I was that person. So I drove out to the farm because Merrill at Holy Cow doesn't really do phones or email or anything like that. He's busy with his cows. And what we were able to do was start to give a little, because it was a very self-sufficient situation where the minimal income that would come in from the milk paid for the cows' extra supplementary feed in the winter. It's not a profit-driven business at all. And people would go to the farm to collect the milk, all in glass bottles, which were returned to the farm. So there's lots of really pretty cool environmental elements, one of which being that it's on a very small scale and it's very local. It used to be that your milk would come from a local farm, and now it all gets sort of consolidated, taken to different places, reprocessed, put into plastic and sent around the place.
Made in the milk powder, made back into milk.
It's pretty wild, and a lot of us are so disconnected from that. And one of the cool things about Holy Cow is, as a customer, you can go there, you can see the cows being milked, you see the calves with the cows, you can see the whole process, and it's fantastic for children. So
it reminds
neat.
me of my holidays as a child. We used to go and stay on farms in Wales, back in the UK, and there was a farm we used to stay on in Barla, Lake Barla. It was a fantastic place, and we used to go there every single year with our boiler suits on. We'd get boiler suits for the holidays, so with 2 different colours, 4 of us, and we get there and there was 4 kids there. They'd had the boiler suits on, so we'd go with our welly boots on, because they're wellies, they're not gum boots. So welly boots, and then we'd go on the farm for 2 weeks, and then we'd help with the milking, we'd help with the herding the cows. That's why I know the difference between cows. You see, they had the Friesians. We'd go and put the suckers on the udders and do all that kind of stuff. And apparently that was a holiday. That was child labour. And when I'm looking back at it, it's we actually paid for my mum and dad. My mum and dad paid for us kids to go and help them with their farm work.
Yeah.
And they made a coin out of us at the same time. But they would then, every morning outside our little cottage, there'd be a fresh milk, and the cream on the top was
cream on the top,
sort of 3 inches, 4 inches of cream on the top of the milk. It was just a different time.
And the thing is, I guess what you get out of that is learning, right? Because there are plenty of children around now that have no real connection with our food systems. They're not, they might know that a cow makes milk, but where does it come from, the udders? Then what happened? All of that stuff is so disconnected. So with Holy Cow, we had, there's all this energy, and to be fair, a lot of the customers were your typical old hippie type, so they weren't necessarily people that were going to come in and make a business plan. They wanted to support these people and support what they saw as a really sustainable way to access their milk, which is such a sort of primary product. And through that, we had a little bit of a team. Steve Walker was one of them who wanted to do a bit more organising. So through that, we ended up holding a beautiful banquet in Port Chalmers, at the Port Chalmers Town Hall. All of the produce was donated. We had chefs donate their time, photographers, musicians, everyone came together. A real sense of celebration. And we're able to keep the farm going, able to get through MPI stuff to, we made a pasteurising plant, mostly using reused materials. A lot came from the Cadbury's site when that was being taken down. And that, I guess, for me was sort of the beginning of turning my whole life and being more towards community-led type initiatives and projects as a job, as well as the thing that you do on top of your paid work, Yeah. So that was, I guess, a bit of a turning point for me. And it had lots of threads through it, the sense of community, bringing diverse voices together, sustainability focus, being able to appreciate the multitude of outcomes that are beneficial to somewhere that is beyond just a small business. But I'm also kind of a little bit entrepreneurially Is that a word? Minded.
It can be.
I'm
Like
always,
you said it.
always
it
keen to
counts.
get in behind people with great ideas and support. I'm not one of those people that has like their one thing that they're really passionate about. My brother's a bonsai artist, and that is who he is. That is his absolute passion. And I'm always a little bit jealous and admire people like that. The closest I've got to a passion is people and talking. So comms was a good career
I'm
path.
down with that. I spend my whole day talking.
I guess that could be another opportunity, the sales sort of thing. But that's led me to sort of community work, and that's what I've been doing for the last 10 or so years in lots of different places and spaces. Yeah.
Fantastic. We're going to get another word from our sponsor very quickly, but I've got a couple of questions for you straight after.
Have you checked out Hazur Kebab yet? It's your go-to for a delicious lunch, a tasty dinner, or anything in between. Order online to save time and pick up some delicious, authentic Turkish cuisine in just minutes. HazurKebabCafe.co.nz. Dine in or take away at 906 George Street.
I'm already getting the feeling, Tess, that we should have booked a 2-hour slot for this show because we're 45 minutes in and I get the feeling...
damn.
I know, crazy. We've only got 10 minutes left and I got the feeling we could be talking probably for the rest of the afternoon. If we just barricade ourselves in here, like they can't...
I don't know if you remember, but there was one time you were standing on the street and I came up to you and I was like, "Hi, I'm Tess. We've got stuff to talk about." And then it was promptly marched away somewhere else.
I do, yes, I absolutely. Yeah, it's like, but that's it. It's like, when you got to talk, you got to talk. That's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm a firm believer, right? The reason I do a radio show, as my wife said to me, you've got too many words for home. Take some of
them
those words
somewhere
and
else.
put them somewhere
I
else.
wish,
But what she doesn't realise is I've still got enough words for home. Like, that's the whole point. I think she was hoping it would
because
calm me
the
down.
more conversation you have,
The
the
more you
more
wanna talk.
excited and talkative you become. Yeah.
Exactly. So I've got a question for you straight off the bat. Is what you said earlier on that you're now working part-time. But what is work for you?
Sure. So at the moment, the work that I do is with the Dunedin City Council, which is quite interesting because I have been mostly in the community sector, and so in some respects it feels a little bit like jumping to the other side. But I've got a really cool job. So my role title is Waste Planning Advisor - Community Groups. But the work that I do is basically supporting and encouraging and finding ways for the council to enable all of the different community organisations, businesses and groups and individuals across the city who play a part in minimising waste. So that can be anything from the likes of an individual with a bright idea and they might need a bit of guidance in terms of how they could connect into some funding or how they could connect with other people where they might get resources from, to groups and organisations. The Curtain Bank's an amazing example, somewhere I used to work as well. So they have a really incredible primary driver, which is a social good to help people keep their homes warm, to improve their health. But what they're also doing is saving a huge amount of textile waste going into our landfill by upcycling it, and finding and having a mechanism for people that are getting lovely new curtains for somewhere for that to go so they don't go to waste. They have a little sustainability store as well, so they make all kinds of cool products out of some of the funky older or newer but funky fabrics that they get. And then to the likes of our place-based groups and community boards. So one great example would be One Coast, which is a resource recovery park in Waikouaiti, which was born out of some changes at the Waikouaiti landfill that happened a few years ago, but also the support and encouragement and crossover and collaboration with the Waikouaiti Community Board. So what I'm working on, and it's just been through council 2 weeks ago now to have approval for our preferred approach, which is a collaborative approach. We're looking to set up a large, multi-use, multifunctional, accessible inner city, what we call the second rummage store, which is a hub for reuse and resource recovery in Dunedin, from all sorts of stuff. So household items, recyclables, and importantly, construction and demolition waste, which is one of the big contributors to our landfill and therefore our emissions at the moment. And in parallel with that, a hub needs some spokes. So we're also looking at community-based resource recovery centres that we'd like to see the likes of some of our really strong community organisations that have a wide reach. Often those are the place-based groups or things that are connected with community boards. As smaller sort of suburb or small regional spaces where people can bring goods and the resources can be recovered. So whether that's from recycling, which is great, but it's not at the top of the waste hierarchy, which is where we're really targeting. And the top of the waste hierarchy are things that encourage a more circular economy. So we're rather than diluting the value of a good like we do when we recycle a plastic bottle, they can only be recycled a few times. It's not a never-ending loop. Going further up that, so teaching people how to repair or having repair services available, upcycling things, finding small business opportunities or sole trader opportunities to, I don't know, make cool mirror frames or whatever it is. So it's about waste, but it's really about collaboration, learning, working together, all that kind of stuff. And then there's sort of a third tranche to that project, which is how do we know what, where and why, and how do people know about it? So some sort of online platform, maybe app-based way of mapping out what we have available in the city across all of that, from the likes of the Curtin Bank to place-based organisations, to these new resource recovery centres in our big hub, so that we've got lots of stuff being used more, travelling the world less, happening on a local level in our city to complement the likes of the bigger resource recovery parks. So we have material processing facilities and organics and that type of thing, which is what happens out at Green Island and is being built up there at the moment. So keeping it really local, reducing emissions, but also reducing waste. One of the challenges that I've observed, and many others have as well, and I've experienced it myself, is a lot of funding for community initiatives is contestable. So you've got a whole lot of different groups and organisations all pitching for the same money, and the pot's never as big as everyone's ask. My hope is that through some of these we can actually reduce the waste that some organisations have. Every little charity needs a board of at least 3 people, and it's often 5 or 6. So they're all volunteers that are spending their time governing these small organisations, and then they need administration, and they often need a website and a place to be and a photocopier and some internet and all of that. So the hope is that we can sort of reduce waste in another sense by bringing people together and encouraging collaboration. So many of our groups and organisations do amazing collaboration already, but because they're in this competitive funding situation, they're fighting each other as well. So we see the role of council is to not replicate anything that the community is doing, but actually to enable it and find ways where people don't have to compete as much, and instead they can collaborate. And that can be even as simple as one group's trash is another group's treasure. We've got some amazing different groups working with bicycles in our city.
Yes.
But they don't necessarily reuse every part of a bicycle. But hey, wouldn't it be fantastic if we had someone that, I don't know if you've ever seen, some people make some awesome jewellery out of the inner tubes of old tyres. It's sort of this great rubbery kind of plastic that you can make into cool shapes. And so, it's sort of finding, even on a really small scale, that may not seem like a huge save from our landfill, but what it does do is some collaboration, sense of purpose,
it's
possible soul training. It's
additional.
additional. And the more you add, and all the examples that I've looked at, the more you add. So on top of having a great shop where you resell things, if you're also able to sell upcycled things, and you're also able to bring your shampoo bottle and get that refilled at the same time, and guess what? There's a workshop
I'd like to have some hair to shampoo test. That'd be nice.
Well, hey, hairdressers are actually an industry that are saving a lot from landfill. So recycled hair is a thing.
Well, I don't have any hair to recycle. I need hair as well.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, one man's trash.
Absolutely. Go and get me a toque sorted.
Yeah. Hey, why not?
I hear you.
So there's been a lot of groundwork. It's taken quite a long time. We've oddly, I have this.
Came with props.
I didn't intentionally come with a prop, but I happened to be carrying our waste minimisation and management plan that was published earlier on this year. And it's a book, I get that. But what it is the mechanism in which we spend all of the money we get from the government from the waste levy.
Yeah.
So it's one of the really cool things about the work that I do is it's not ratepayer funded. It's funded through a levy that goes on everything that goes into landfill. So it's being cycled back around into minimisation initiatives. Yeah.
And we need to be doing more, right? Because one of the things I keep talking about all the time at the moment is the fact that everything breaks when you throw it away.
Yeah.
Right? Because I've got a washing machine that broke, right? to repair it was $1,400, but to repair it was going to cost me like $500. So it's a real thin line about whether I threw that away. I've got it repaired, but the fact of the matter is, and they told me, but it's going to break soon. Right?
Yep.
So I've spent $500 to get it repaired, thinking like, I wish that would have given it another 10 years of life, but it's not going to by the sounds of it. But then I'm going to have to throw that away.
Planned obsolescence is a huge challenge.
It's massive, and manufacturers need to do more. And again, I think we could talk for probably another whole hour on that in itself, but it is a particular bugbear of mine. And I'm going to tell you right now, we've run out of time. So we absolutely need to get you back on the show at some point in the future because it feels like we've barely scratched the surface.
We haven't even talked about the new chili and garlic sauce at the Jitsu, which is a thing.
I know. So that's what we need to come back to. But thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Let's get you back on soon, rather than like another year's time, and we'll talk again. Thank you. Well, that's a wrap for this week. Thank you for tuning in. I've been Richard Knights, and you've all been wonderful. Remember, if you're looking for a robust, respectful adult debate about all things local and further afield, and a welcoming online community doesn't take itself too seriously, come and find What's News Dunedin on Facebook and join our fun. On next week's show, hopefully we'll be talking to Rachel McGregor from Port to Port Cruises, and we look forward to seeing you next Friday at 12 on OAR FM. If you want to listen to the show again, or simply share it with your friends, you can find the podcast at oar.org.nz, or even on Spotify or your favourite podcast provider.
This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.